Content presented in Cheshire Corners is for educational and informational purposes only. Please consult a legal professional if you have any questions or concerns about the content of this disclaimer, this series, or the legal implications surrounding psychedelic substances in your jurisdiction.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them, but the only thing you can't do is ignore them. Because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
The legendary Apple co-founder said that taking LSD was one of the 2 or 3 most meaningful experiences in his life. He said that it gave him the ability to think different, which became Apple's motto. Francis Crick, the co-discoverer of the DNA structure, said that he envisioned the double helix while on LSD. This should come as no surprise because there is repeated documentary evidence and scientific evidence that microdoses and high doses of LSD can actually have a positive effect in problem solving. This was demonstrated in the research of James Fadiman and Willis Harman at Stanford University, where they gave a number of scientists, architects, chemists, biologists, mathematicians, LSD to see if it would help them achieve a breakthrough on a problem that they had been working on unsuccessfully for 2 or 3 months. In most cases, each of them had a breakthrough that led to a commercial application. I believe that any society that talks about innovation while banning LSD is cutting off its nose to spite its face.
How many of you are 36 years older than 36 years old? Yeah, you were born pre-computer. The computer's 36 years old. And there's something sort of, I think that there's going to be a little slice in the timeline of history as we look back. Pretty meaningful slice right there.
The thing I would say is, when you grow up, you tend to get told that the world is the way it is, and your life is just to live your life inside the world, try not to bash into the walls too much, try to have a nice family life, have fun, save a little money. But life, that's a very limited life. Life can be much broader once you discover one simple fact, and that is everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you. And you can change it. You can influence it. You can build your own things that other people can use. And the minute that you understand that you can poke life and actually something will, if you push in, something will pop out the other side, that you can change it, you can mold it. That's maybe the most important thing, is to shake off this erroneous notion that life is there and you're just going to live in it, versus embrace it, change it, improve it, make your mark upon it. I think that's very important. And however you learn that, once you learn it, you'll want to change life and make it better, because it's kind of messed up in a lot of ways. Once you learn that, you'll never be the same again.
The billionaires I know, almost without exception, use hallucinogens on a regular basis. The hallucinogens are discussed very openly in private settings, so people aren't ashamed of it. Using these smart drugs is like pouring gasoline on the fire, but the hallucinogens used very, very intelligently help you decide where to put the fire.
Well, I think generally people should be open to psychedelics. Big picture-wise, I think we want to take the set of actions that maximize the probability that the future is good, and that civilization continues, and that the sort of the small candle of consciousness in the void that is humanity continues, and the candle does not go out.
You used to do LSD with Steve Jobs. Take me back to those college days. I mean, let's just rewind and go back there.
Let's see, were we playing Sgt. Pepper? It was pretty prosaic. We were in Portland at Reed College. You know, freshman college year is a very poignant time of life where you're very much trying to figure out what the world is about and what you're interested in. At Reed was a pastoral environment, and so there was a lot of hanging out going on. But Steve and I developed a friendship when we figured out that we had both read this amazing book called Be Here Now, which is about psychedelics and spirituality. I had found this book, Be Here Now, at the bookstore, and it was a spiritual book of a type I had never seen before in my life. And so I was carrying it around, and I must have run into Steve, and he was interested in it also. And that was the beginning of our friendship. Steve was my best friend at the time of life when I was discovering all this huge current of Eastern literature. All of a sudden, psychedelics were being introduced into the mix of traditional spirituality, and that was just very fascinating. Well, because it was about this spiritual teacher, Neem Karoli Baba. That was the first of many books that we read. The next one was Autobiography of a Yogi, which is also fascinating. And then the one after that was Ramakrishna and his disciples.
Is the book that brought you to India, right? Together, you visited
Well,
India?
it was the book that sparked our interest in Hindu spirituality, be the way to put it. And then, over that year, we found out that Robert Friedland was the student body president for Reed College. He had been to the same place that was in the book. He was a devotee also of Neem Karoli. And when he told us we should go to India, that was kind of the seed of the idea.
Do you remember the first time you guys took psychedelics together?
No, not really. We were just kind of walking around. I think we used to go for hikes. I think we camped out on the beach. I can't really remember building a campfire. I don't remember what we did when it got dark. I can tell you that the times that I was taking psychedelics with Steve, we weren't really talking that much. We were more of in a meditative space.
Are you a hippie or a nerd?
Oh, if I had to pick one of those two, I'm clearly a hippie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that in 30 seconds.
All the people I work with were clearly in that category too.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, why? I mean, is it you seek out hippies, or they are attracted to you?
Well, ask yourself, what is a hippie? I mean, this is an old word, it has a lot of connotations, but to me, you know, because I grew up, I mean, remember that the 60s happened in the early 70s, right? So we have to remember that, and that's sort of when I came of age. So I saw a lot of this, and, you know, a lot of it happened right in our backyard here. So, to me, the spark of that was that there was something beyond sort of what you see every day. There's something going on here in life beyond just a job and a family and 2 cars in the garage and a career. There's something more going on. There's another side of the coin that we don't talk about much, and we experience it when there's gaps, when we kind of just aren't really, when everything's not ordered and perfect, when there's kind of a gap, you experience this inrush of something. And a lot of people have set off throughout history to find out what that was. You know, whether it's Thoreau or whether it's, you know, some Indian mystics or whoever it might be. And the hippie movement got a little bit of that, and they wanted to find out what that was about. And that life wasn't about what they saw their parents do. And of course the pendulum swung too far the other way and it was crazy, but there was a germ of something there. And it's the same thing that causes people to want to be poets instead of bankers, you know? And I think that's a wonderful thing.
I didn't have any money. I had no travel plans, but Steve had started working at Atari and he had money, a couple $1,000s. And so he offered to buy my ticket. And I said, absolutely okay, let's go. We were just traveling around, just hippies traveling around. We weren't even hippies. We shaved our heads. We were monks. We were monk wannabes.
Atari had a problem in Switzerland with their video games. So they paid for him to go to Switzerland. And so he had free travel. He only had to buy a ticket from Geneva to New Delhi. Mm-hmm. Steve was a little more goal-oriented, and he wanted to meet a yogi who would tap him on the forehead and he would be enlightened. Didn't happen. That's what he told Walter Isaacson, who wrote the biography about Steve. He said, we figured out we weren't going to get enlightened in 30 days.
It's an honor to welcome you to Facebook. And thank you to everyone here in Hacker Square and in our community watching us live in India and around the world. You know, India is personally very important to the history of our company here. This is a story that I haven't told publicly and very few people know, but early on in our history, before things were really going well and we had hit a tough patch and a lot of people wanted to buy Facebook and thought we should sell the company, I went and I saw one of my mentors, Steve Jobs, and he told me that in order to reconnect with what I believed as the mission of the company, I should visit this temple that he had gone to in India early on in his evolution of thinking about what he wanted Apple and his vision of the future to be. And so I went and I traveled for almost a month, and seeing the people, seeing how people connected, and having the opportunity to feel how much better the world could be if everyone had a stronger ability to connect, reinforced for me the importance of what we were doing. And that is something that I've always remembered over the last 10 years as we built Facebook. So,
Steve was kind of crazy in a certain way, and I was kind of crazy in a certain way. Well, as I said, I think Steve and I were in our own different ways, not the same ways. I didn't take as much acid as he did.
When Steve Jobs was kind of denigrating me, he said, oh, Bill Gates has no design taste. He should have taken acid. And I was like, wait a minute. I took the acid. It was just, I got the batch that's about code, not about design.
You got the weird batch.
He got a very different batch than I did.
Yeah.
Today we celebrate the first glorious anniversary for the first time in all history, a garden of pure ideology, where each worker may bloom, secure from the pests of a contradictory thoughts. Our unification of thoughts is more powerful a weapon than any fleet or army on earth. We are one people, with one will, one resolve, one cause. Our enemies shall talk themselves to death, and we will bury them with their own confusion. We shall prevail.
On January 24th, Apple Computer will introduce Macintosh. And you'll see why 1984 won't be like 1984.
He comes by and he says, hey Trip, you've never taken LSD, have you?
No.
And I said, no.
Straight out.
And he said, yeah, I thought so. And then he walks away. Because he really absolutely believed that LSD had been a very positive transformation in how he thought.
I mean, everything we do is entirely creative. Everything requires creative solutions. You've built some new hardware that's incredibly complicated, and you want to get it out to market very quickly, and you are bumping your head against problems all the time. It almost becomes an obsession, like, I just want to see console output. And LSD kind of fits into that because you get this sort of magical breakthrough. I would be at a Grateful Dead show, high in LSD during drums, and then something about my work would just come to me. I had been working on a problem for over a month, doing all this hardcore debugging, and I took LSD. I just realized, wait, the problem is in hardware, it's not a software problem at all. I come back to, to work the next day, tell my manager I had an epiphany.
When I heard that he was starting this Apple project, that was a big surprise to me, and I volunteered to help, not having any qualifications whatsoever, but I was happy to help. Most of what I was doing was testing these boards and, hooking them up and testing. I had to plug all the chips in and then test them. And Steve was on the phone in the kitchen most of the time. So I was alone in the garage. Did I even have a radio? No, I didn't even think I had a radio.
Once you were there, did you and Steve Jobs ever take LSD or continue to take psychedelics?
Once Apple started, Steve was really focused with all of his energy on making Apple successful. And he didn't need psychedelics for that.
Jobs had this focus. Once he got an idea in his head, that was it. And you never wanted to be between him and where he wanted to go. You'd wind up with footprints on your forehead.
No, I've actually always found something to be very true, which is most people don't get those experiences because they never ask. I've never found anybody that didn't want to help me if I asked them for help. I always call him up. I called up, this will date me, but I called up Bill Hewlett when I was 12 years old, and he lived in Palo Alto. His number was still in the phone book. And he answered the phone himself. He said, yes? He said, hi, I'm Steve Jobs. I'm 12 years old. I'm a student in high school, and I want to build a frequency counter. And I was wondering if you had any spare parts I could have. And he laughed, and he gave me the spare parts to build this frequency counter, and he gave me a job that summer in Hewlett-Packard, working on the assembly line, putting nuts and bolts together on frequency counters. He got me a job in the place that built them. And I was in heaven. And I've never found anyone who said no or hung up the phone when I called. I just asked. And when people ask me, I try to be as responsive, to pay that debt of gratitude back. Most people never pick up the phone and call. Most people never ask. And that's what separates sometimes the people that do things from the people that just dream about them. You gotta act, and you've got to be willing to fail. You've got to be willing to crash and burn, with people on the phone, with starting a company, with whatever. If you're afraid of failing, you won't get very far.